Hi, my name is Ethan Hoffer, and for my video recap presentation 2, I'm going to be talking about the importance of communication in the workplace, whether that is verbal or written communication throughout an office. We've all heard the age-old saying that listening and hearing are not the same thing. Listening requires a lot more. There's a lot more that goes into it, from body language to acknowledgement and things like that. Our textbook defines active listening as becoming actively involved in the process of listening to what others are saying and clarifying the message's meaning. This is really important to have a really good conversation with a coworker, colleague, peer, supervisor, whoever it may be. Active listening is really important in the workplace because a business runs on communication, and it's really important, whether that be through memos, meetings, interviews, presentations, whatever it is. It's obviously a very key factor in how an office runs. Our textbook went over a few tips to be a better listener and a better communicator in the workplace. The first one is pay close attention to individual inferences, facts, and judgments. This will go towards when you have the time to acknowledge what the person is saying. You need to make sure that you're kind of relaying what they say. So taking note of their stances and the things they say are really important. The next one is give the speaker nonverbal evidence that you're listening. This is super easy stuff, whether it be head nods, hand gestures, things like that, maintaining eye contact, whatever it may be. You want to make sure that they feel heard, especially if it's a subordinate and you're the supervisor and they're trying to say something important to you. It's really important to make sure that they feel like you are actively listening. The next one is give speaker clear verbal evidence that you're listening. So this can just be just little phrases, little okay, like yes, I hear you, things like that. And that goes back again to just making sure that they feel like you are listening and they feel like they are being heard. Next stuff is pretty easy stuff. It's just do not interrupt. That's obvious. That goes with any sort of manners in any conversation. But one thing is making sure you have a good tone when you do respond or acknowledge something. This just will help keep the conversation civil, keep it appropriate, things like that. The last one is follow up and offer honest and clear acknowledgments. So this is kind of like when you find the right time, you need to acknowledge what they've said, maybe give your feedback, your response, be honest, don't sugarcoat anything, don't beat around the bush. But yeah, those are the tips that the textbook gives as far as being a good active listener. And I think if we all kind of took note of those tips and used them in our daily lives, not even necessarily in the office, I think things in our lives would run a lot smoother. Now I want to talk about communicating through writing. This happens a lot in an organization, whether it be memos, announcements, emails is a really big one because a lot of offices, especially nowadays with remote working and things like that, an office can run on emails and important things like that. The textbook gives a few tips on how to communicate effectively through writing also. They say back up assertions with statistics, examples, and citations. This kind of just goes towards making sure the receiver of the email or memo or whatever it is, make sure this makes them feel like you've done your research, you know what you're talking about, you're not just spewing whatever it may be. The next one is a really important one, actually. It's write for your audience. So I've learned a lot about this in other classes as well as this class. You really need to make sure that your email or whatever it may be has the proper tone depending on who's receiving it. If you're writing something that is going upwards to maybe your supervisor or even higher than that, you need to make sure it has a really proper tone. You need to make sure you're remaining factual, staying on topic, being respectful, not like make sure it's not worded like a text message to a buddy, you know. That's really important. If it's going to a subordinate or a peer, it can be a little bit more relaxed. You know, things like that. The next tip is write to express, not to impress. And this is really important. I think of this mainly for memos and things like that. No one likes reading memos. So basically this tip is just saying, you know, keep it factual, stay on topic, you know, get what you want to say, get that point across pretty easily. Edit and revise is the next tip. This kind of just goes for anything. It would look really bad if you were the supervisor and sent out a company-wide memo and they were filled with grammatical errors, spelling errors, things like that. That's just a really bad look. No one's going to take it seriously. And it might even damage your reputation. So that's a really important one. Pretty simple. The next two kind of go together. So it's make documents easy to read and using graphics and pictures. Like I said, no one likes, when everyone thinks of a memo, they think of just a page of just paragraphs and just black letters on a paper. And that is going to cause people to disregard it, maybe not even read it, which obviously is a bad thing, because if you're sending out a memo, it must be pretty important. Placing the pictures and graphics is pretty important. It needs to be appropriate. If it's a really important thing, you're not going to want to be putting a bunch of fun graphics up there, but graphics and pictures definitely help even back up your message. If you're trying to get something across, it's kind of a visual aid. So those are really important. And the last one is write with energy and conviction. So this kind of goes back to the tone. The tone needs to be well suited for the audience and things like that. So now that we've talked about two different types of communication and how to do it effectively, I did a little bit of research on my own on companies that have had some poor communication mishaps within their organization. This is all according to beekeeper.com is my source. The first one I found was Nike. So they are obviously a very widely successful company, but apparently they have major culture problems. Many women within the organization have come out and said that it's kind of a men's club and men get different opportunities and better opportunities that some of the women don't. So this is obviously a really big problem, which honestly could probably be solved with just better communication and making sure everyone's on the same page. Another one was Starbucks. So they had a few incidences where some of their supervisors and employees weren't upholding their organizational values. So Starbucks, the higher ups, definitely could be doing a better job of making sure everyone is on the same page as far as organizational values go and the standards that they want to uphold and how they want their business to be represented. A big one I saw was Yahoo. So Yahoo, obviously they are, this is, I think, part of their email program type thing. They had thousands, hundreds of thousands of accounts that were hacked recently. And the problem with this incident was the lack of communication. The higher ups knew about it, they heard about it and everything, and just said absolutely nothing. So that's a big problem, especially a main role of communication in the workplace is about openness and honesty. And they tried to cover it up, and that's a horrible look. So they definitely got some things were damaged with that, whether it was reputation or whatever it may be. As far as how it applies to me, my goal in life, or my career goal, is to be a manager, owner, work day to day and own a franchise of something possibly. And, learning about communication is really important for me because I want my office to run effectively and smoothly, and I want everyone to have a good time and want to come into work. So these things are all reliant heavily on how we communicate as an office. So I'm definitely going to be taking these tips and the information that I've learned into my future career, hopefully as a manager. Thank you for listening.